the stand. Now he runs. He produces a magic trick. He pulls out another one. This is incredible. This is ridiculous. This is 15 out of 10 on the incredible meter. What a player. What an entertainer. Give him the medal. Give him the Dally M medal.
Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast, our first podcast of 2025 here on the Chip and Chase account. We've been on a few. We've featured on the Ruck Infringement, doing our Warriors preview. We've featured over on the Casual Athlete, talking a bit about rookies in the fantasy space. So if you haven't heard those ones and you've been missing my voice, which I'm sure you haven't, but if you do want to check them out, please go and do so. A lot of good stuff to hear on them. But here we are finally back in 2025. It's been a rough not rough's probably not the right word, but it's been a slow start to the year in terms of the podcast and in terms of content on the Instagram page. A lot of big things going on with my life at the moment, including moving and, moving housemates as well. Got car repairs and all that sort of stuff. Life gets in the way sometimes. Even today, this is our usual Monday podcast, and I've already announced that we have a co-host this year. So it's a bit weird that I'm just sitting here talking by myself, basically just scheduling sort of conflicts with all the life stuff that gets in the way, leads it to be just me solo for round one. But I think that's a good thing. We can just kick things off, talking a bit of footy, just me and you guys. And then hopefully next week we'll have Riley, who will be my co-host in 2025, joining the podcast. As of next week, all podcasts will be filmed as well. Hopefully if we can, actually make sure that this is all right to go, and they'll be up on the YouTube. So if you are just listening on audio platform, head over to the YouTube channel and you can see those from next week onwards. But here we are, all things out of the way, ready to talk round one. Now, we didn't get a podcast up for the Vegas games, which is something we would have liked to do. But again, life stuff sort of got in the way. So we will brush over those games a little bit quicker. I think, everybody's sort of a bit over those games at this point. As a Warriors supporter, I definitely am. And then we'll touch a little bit more in depth for the other games. But everything this year, we're trying to make it a little bit more condensed. And by a little bit more, I'm talking 1 hour, around that 1 hour mark podcasts. No more 2 hours of me talking shit. It's just going to be all of these dot points. I've got my notes. I've got it all ingrained in my memory. We're going to start talking. So let's kick things off back over to the Vegas games. That started with the Raiders and the Warriors. Now, Raiders, they of course got the win in this one, 30-8, I believe it was. I should probably get those scores up, but I do not have them, so we'll figure that out at another time. But the Raiders, they got a really good win over the Warriors in this game. Very disappointing, as I said, as a Warriors supporter, especially, with everything that they did throughout the week. I thought they were fantastic leading into it. They had their trials, which we've covered over on the page in the form of our preseason magazine. They looked unreal, and I was really excited for this game. Raiders, they came in, and to me, the big thing about this is I felt like the Warriors let the occasion get the better of them. The bright lights of Vegas, I think as soon as they got out in that field, they felt a bit out of their depth, and, all this preparation can only go so far. If you get out there for the first game of the season, you're in front of not just, 40,000 people, but over in a whole different country, bright lights of, the Sin City. I think they just, let that sort of get the better of them, and a lot of players didn't really play up to their standards. Luke Metcalf, he's copping a lot of shit right now. I think, with what we saw of Luke Metcalf in the trials, I'm more than happy to keep him as our halfback for a few more games. I'm not writing him off after one. I think he has what it takes, and I love him as a talent, but there's no doubt that in round one against the Raiders, he didn't really play his best footy. The Warriors, they sort of spread the ball a lot without really willing to get into the grind with the Raiders pack. So there was no speed in which they were spreading the ball left and right, and the Raiders were really able to just, ate that up in defense quite easily. While over for the Raiders side, I feel like they just came with a game plan in this one, and they executed that game plan to perfection. They weren't afraid to offload out there, and then they were really, really good, had a lot of success in playing off the back of those offloads and pushing the ball wide as soon as they, got one away. And they found, great success against the inexperienced edges of the, the inexperienced center wing combinations of the Warriors. Of course, no Dallin, no Marcelo Montoya from last year. We've got Ali Leitao was in the centers with Adam Pompey, and the new wing combinations of Tane Tuapiki and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the wing as well. So Raiders, they came with that game plan. They executed that really, really well. And I think they're going to upset a lot of teams this year. I really like the way that they played. I think if they can continue playing this style of footy, playing off the back of those offloads and getting a team into the grind in the middle, they've got such a good forward pack. They'll get a lot more wins than people are expecting this year. As I said with the Warriors, very disappointing start. I feel like it wasn't helped with a few of the rotations. I think Mitch Barnett and James Fisher-Harris came off at a similar time period and then stayed off at the same time. For me, I'm wanting one of those players on at least for most of the game. Not most of the game in the sense that they have to play 80 minutes. Most of the game as in when one's off, the other should be on. We need one of them as our aggressors essentially on all the time. I don't know what sort of rotations you want to do there, but they're our captains, they're our leaders, and they were taken off the field at the same time. And there was a 30-minute stretch there where the Raiders really dominated the Warriors. They dominated, essentially over the full game, but that 30 minutes in particular was a bit disappointing. So there's a lot of things to learn from the Warriors, but round one, I'm going to put it down to the bright lights of Vegas, and I'm going to hope that we can bounce back moving forward. In terms of standout players, again, cutting this down a bit shorter, over for the Raiders, Xavier Savage, I thought was unreal. I thought he had the best game, probably the best game of his career over on the wing. You're hearing a lot coming out about him at the moment, saying essentially he's in the best form of his career, like in preseason, in his headspace, the effort areas that he's doing, he's just doing that. He's playing amazingly, he's training amazingly, and that's what you want to hear from Xavier Savage. Such a talent, but you can't just rely on that talent. And he came out in this game, he had so many runs. I'll pull up his stats right now, but lots and lots of runs. He scored 2 tries. He set up the Matt Timoko try on the right-hand side as well by skipping across field with his speed. I think he linked with would have been Zach Hosking. Hosking got a great ball away to Timoko, and Timoko sprinted away down that sideline. So I'm sure, NRL Stats probably credits that with the Zach Hosking try assist, but that was made by Xavier Savage. He was just unbelievable. His stats here, 2 tries, as I said, 16 runs, 219 metres. It did help that he had that 90-metre intercept. 7 tackle breaks from Xavier Savage, and I thought defensively he was very solid as well. His wing partner, Savelio Tamale, I was really, really impressed with as well. Now, there's no meat pies for Tamale, of course, both going the way of Xavier Savage, his wing partner, but he also took 16 runs for 219 metres, 7 tackle breaks and 2 line breaks as well. He just looks like an absolute handful out there. Of course, they worked really hard to get him over from the Dragons. Thought he looked really, really good out there. I think he's going to bring a more dynamic. That's not the word I'm going for, but he's going to be very dynamic, and I think he's going to bring a bit of an X factor to their attack. Sort of reminds me of early Jordan Rapana when he had a bit more speed about him, just sort of everywhere and everything. I loved what he was doing. Now, as I said, we're not going to go into each and every player. You could almost compliment every single Raiders player in this. The other ones I thought were really good. Corey Horsburgh, really liked what he did. He played that full first half. He ended up starting at prop in this one. Punched out 59 minutes. As I said, 40 were straight in that first half, and then came back on for an extra 19. I assume he can punch up those minutes if they need him to. They obviously didn't in this one, but he had 16 runs, 123 metres as well. And the big thing about him, he was just willing to get that offload away. And as I said, I think the Raiders look the best when they're playing off the back of those offloads. There was a lot of offloads across the squad. Timoko had 2, Savage had 2. But yeah, Horsburgh and Tarpany, 3 each is the big ones. You got to be sniffing around the ruck and those guys getting the ball away. That's how you play off that. So I thought Corey Horsburgh was unreal. The other man I really wanted to mention was Tom Starling. Now, big, question marks about this Raiders sort of hooker area throughout all of the preseason, even, parts of last season, essentially since they had Josh Hodgson leave. I thought Tom Starling came out and he was unreal. He had that quick play of the ball where he identified Jackson Ford offside at Marco, or running back into line, I should say, and he just used his acceleration and bolted through that gap. Would have been about a 60, 70-metre run from the hooker, and just they scored off that set off the back of him. So I thought he was really good out there. Played 68 minutes too, so almost the full game. Owen Paddy didn't get a massive amount, but of course did make his NRL debut in this one, so congratulations to Owen Paddy as well. Someone we've talked a little bit about across the post in our preseason. I'm really excited about the career he's going to have. He's an absolute talent. But yeah, as I said, we're not going to go into all of these players. Trying to make these quicker. I've already been rambling for 10 minutes across this podcast. For the Warriors, in terms of standouts, there weren't too many really. As I said, this is more of a, regroup, put this in the back door and move on to next week. I thought Roger Tuivasa-Sheck was quite good. He, of course, scored one of their only tries, 191 metres as well. And I really liked Dylan Walker when he came onto the field. I feel like he just looked a lot more dangerous and added a bit more to our attack and brought a bit of pace when we were running wide. He was straightening it up and just having a bit of pace about him. So I thought those two were good. But besides that, it's a pretty forgettable night for the Warriors. So we'll move on to the next game. The other Vegas game we're covering here, of course, being the Panthers and Sharks. Not worrying about the Super League game, which was very, very fun to watch, and the women's game, which was quite frankly very not fun to watch. We're just sort of NRL here. I did watch them. I did enjoy them in my own right, but we're just covering the NRL stuff here. So the Panthers and Sharkies. Look, I thought the Panthers, they came into this one and I thought they played pretty scrappy for at least that opening 20 minutes or so. I thought it almost looked like the occasion got to them the same way it did to the Warriors. But of course, as soon as, they rolled into it, they were just unstoppable. But yeah, that opening 20, I had a few concerns. They were pushing passes that they shouldn't be throwing. They were missing tackles they shouldn't miss. It looked like they finally had a crack in their armor. And then, of course, as soon as you doubt them, that they pull into gear and they just go about their business. But I thought it was a scrappy performance, but a good performance once they settled in, especially against the quality and opposition in the Sharkies. I thought the Sharkies played pretty darn well. I didn't think they were poor, but I do think they will be pretty disappointed they iced their opportunities, especially in that opening 20 that I mentioned. With all those errors that the Panthers made, you need to ice them. As soon as the Panthers are inviting you into field position, as soon as any of the good teams invite you into field position, the good teams will ice those opportunities. And the Sharks put it down to the Panthers' great defense for sure, but I thought the Sharkies didn't really ice those opportunities. But yeah, 28-22 scoreline. You got to be pretty, okay with that. I'm sure they'll see it as a missed opportunity, but they weren't blown out of the water by the defending premiers. Unfortunately, that's like the only time I think they versed the Panthers this season. So they're not going to get a chance to see how far they've come and verse them later on in the season unless it's in the final series. But definitely a decent first outing for them. Disappointing if you're a Sharkies fan and probably in their coaching ranks, they're not too happy about it. But I saw enough positives that I liked. Speaking of those positives, the Nico Hines-Braden Trindle combination. Now, we mentioned again in our preseason magazine, go and check that out on the Instagram if you haven't already. We mentioned how it seems the Sharkies are playing a very Trindle, you own the left side of this team. Hines, you own the right. Now, there are a few times that they switch over, and that's all good. But for the majority of the game, and I'd assume the majority of their game plans moving forward in this season, Trindle has complete control of the left-hand side and Hines has complete control of the right. And I honestly really like that. I think both these players are just out-and-out footy players. They want their hands on the ball as much as possible. And I think, Hines has got a lot of flack for a long time now, unfairly so, in my opinion, for most of it. Braden Trindle, I feel like, the good thing about it all, if there is a silver lining to it, is Trindle has got really no recognition about this. Nobody's worried about Trindle. It's all Hines in the headlines. Trindle is an absolute gun footy player. I thought he was really good in this game. His kicking game is unreal. Just his game sense, his knowledge of when to pass, when to run, when to kick. I love what Trindle does, and I'm happy to give these two players, you've got that side, you've got this side, equal sort of responsibilities. Let's just go about our business and we'll make stuff, off the back of that. And essentially they did. Kayla Ero scored on the left-hand side on Trindle's good plays. Jesse Ramian, Britton Nikita scored on the right-hand side of Hines, not directly off Hines, but, all of that directing traffic is on the back of them. And I thought they did that really well. And of course, Adam Fanua-Blake was their other try scorer, just seemingly picking up where he left off with the Warriors, scoring tries for fun. He's just an absolute gun. I've already got a bet on that he won't score as many this year with the Warriors, so it was a bit disappointing to see him score that try, and he's got me a bit shaky in my boots, but we'll see how we go. But in terms of standouts for these clubs, starting with the Sharkies, Jesse Ramian, my king. You guys know how much, especially if you watch the Supercoach, you tune into the Supercoach stuff, you know how much I rate Jesse Ramian. I thought he was really, really good for the Sharkies. Of course, scored that try, which, he only scored a handful of tries last season, but his efforts came in a lot of other areas. 21 runs, 192 metres, which topped the metre count for the Sharkies. 9 tackle breaks, which is unbelievable, and 19 tackles for 1 miss. I thought he was unreal. Kayla Ero I thought was really good. We mentioned what I liked in the halves really happy with them. I thought Ronaldo Mulatalo had a bit of a poor performance. He essentially gave the Panthers a try by just running in and tackling someone off marker or whatever it was for no reason, and that gave the Panthers a penalty on the Sharks' 10-meter line. So I thought he was very off, and that may have cost his team the game. I won't say it's cost his team the game, but it cost them 6 points, and in the end, that was like the difference in the game. Beyond that, for the Sharkies, Adam Fanua-Blake was great. Blake Brayley, I thought, defended his ass off in the middle. Ken McInnes, loved what he did, just coming back behind the ruck. Thought he was really good. And William Kennedy, the big one for me, I thought he was unreal in defense. Sure, helped by the refereeing decisions a couple of times. There was the 40-20 save where his hand, his foot was on the line and they didn't call it. But again, those are those effort areas. There was another try saver he had. It was just sort of everywhere, and I thought he was unreal out there. So it's exactly what you want to see, with the pressure he was under coming into this season. Is he their long-term fullback moving forward? Is it Ison? Is it Dykes? Is it someone else? I thought he couldn't have done much more in this game. I thought he was really, really good. Speaking on Liam Ison, we'll quickly touch on that. The poor young bloke made his debut last year. He has ruptured his ACL, so he is out for the season, which is just a gutting blow for him and the Cronulla Sharks. So just want to wish him all the best. But back to the Sharkies. Yeah, as I said, they'll lament a few of their chances, but in the end, I thought they'll be pretty happy with this performance. For the Panthers, as I said, scrappy for a bit, but they still got that class, don't they? Dylan Edwards was pushing all these passes and came up with heaps of errors, and in the end comes up with 23 runs, 218 metres, line breaks, tackle breaks, try assists, out the wazoo. He was doing everything out there despite having a shaky performance. Jack Cole, I thought, complemented Cleary really well. Cleary played his natural game and was really, really really good at it. Liam Martin, big plays. Isaiah Yeo, though, for me, was the big one in this side. Scoring that try, having 15 runs for 147 metres, all the talk about Luai leaving and all these other players leaving. For me, the Panthers are going to be the Panthers as long as they have Isaiah Yeo and Nathan Cleary. I think they are the heart and soul. There's a reason they're the captains. They are the identity of this side. And yeah, Isaiah Yeo, when everything was going a bit rough, he just puts the team on his back and goes, nah, follow me. Here's the way to the try line. And I thought he was unreal in doing that. So I loved what I saw from Isaiah Yeo. Lindsay Smith, I also really liked, of course, stepping up into James Fisher-Harris's shoes this year. Thought he was unreal. I think he played like 40 or 50 minutes straight. He was unreal. Ended up with 60 minutes in the game, 18 runs, 136 metres, and where's the tackles over there? 47 tackles with 2 missed. Fantastic game from Lindsay Smith. But yeah, we'll try and move on from these ones. I've already spent too long on them, to be honest, considering I wanted to take less time on them. But we'll see how we go. Next game, the Roosters and the Broncos. Let's start with the Broncos, and we'll have a bit more to talk about them. They were great. Like early days, but they look like the real deal. I was a little bit worried about the Madge Maguire, how he comes into this side. Not because Madge can't coach, but because Madge has notoriously been a very hard-nosed coach. And this Broncos side, they're flamboyant. They attack, they do all this, they make errors. And that's all good and well, with how Madge coaches. But was that going to blend? I wasn't entirely sure. I didn't know which players would buy in and which players wouldn't. To me, it seems like they all have. Reece Walsh was the telling sign for me. Reece Walsh, as I said, very flamboyant, lots of errors. Can he buy into a game plan which is tough and gritty? Well, he can. I thought he was unreal in this game. Of course, scored himself a nice little try. 23 runs for 221 metres. Now, of course, it's all a bit skewed because the Broncos essentially had, the entire game's worth of possession. But 23 runs in general, it just shows how much effort he's putting in. You never saw him having those numbers last season. So I thought it was really, really good. Line break assist, try, 2 tackle breaks. He was unreal. So hard to handle. Just, he's so fast. He's so quick off the mark. And I think he's in for a big season. Now that I've seen that, I'm already convinced in what he's going to pull out this season. So I loved what I saw from Reece Walsh. But the big one for the Broncos for me was Payne Haas. He was an absolute Adonis. You could not handle him in this game. And I think I saw Willie Mason talking about this on the Levels podcast, but I think this is... He was spot on with what he said. Payne Haas, he can punch out 80. He can punch out your 65, 70, 80 minutes if you need him to. But do you need him to? Why not let him go empty the tank for 25 to 30 minutes and go as hard as he possibly can? Use every bit of fuel remaining, put him on the sidelines, refueling him up, and put him back on for that final stretch. If he's only playing, he played 49 minutes in this one, which is not a massive amount of time for props in today's game, and definitely not for Payne Haas. If you get him playing 55, a few more minutes on top of this, I think he can just be an Adonis in that. Like, every run he had was with venom. He was impossible to stop. He's the best front rower in our game. He essentially always has been, despite a few injuries here and there and being out of the spotlight. 15 runs, 167 meters, 9 tackle breaks from prop, try assist, line break assist. He's just 22 tackles, 0 missed, 100% of tackle efficiency. He was the best player on the park, and he only played 49 minutes, and that goes to show how scary this Broncos side is. But his prop partner, Patrick Carrigan, another one of our favourites, punched out 67 minutes at prop, so looking like that numbers, like his minutes each game, isn't really going to change, which I like that for Paddy Carrigan. You don't need him to be out locked. He can still do the same sort of things at prop, but he can bring you a lot more, and he can stay out there for a longer period as well. 25 runs from Patrick Carrigan, 242 meters, a try assist, a line break assist as well. He is such a weapon, one of my favourite players. He honestly, now that Sean Johnson's retired, Paddy could be my favourite. Bunty, of course, because we all got to love Bunty Afoa. Patrick Carrigan, someone that we've talked about extensively since he debuted. I remember talking to my mum and pointing him out with the hair, and just Patrick Carrigan, look at him, watch him, mum. He's going to be in every single tackle for this set. And he was. And since then, he's been on my mum's mind. Mum's loved him. And well, mum's a Queenslander, unfortunately, but we're New South Wales, the rest of our family through and through. And someone like Patrick Carrigan, you've just got to love the work that he does. So love what he put out. And yeah, this is some scary, scary signs from the Broncos. As I said, just as a club, the way there were so many question marks. If they'd buy in, how the halves pairing of Hunt and Reynolds would work, which we'll get to in a second. So many question marks on this Broncos side. And yes, they went up against a Roosters side that, in fairness, has still a fair bit of quality on paper, but they look like they're in for a very, very tough season. But there's one thing to get a good scoreline on them. There's another to put 50 points on them in round one against the top 4 side from last year to win 50-14. It's scary stuff for the Broncos. I'm very excited to see how they do this. Obviously, the question remains on whether they can keep this up, whether or not, wins like this is going to get them going, okay, we can just keep attacking and not be willing to do the hard stuff. But I'm not too worried about that. I am very big on them all of a sudden, and I think they're going to be a top 8 for sure, maybe even a top 4 side. And with the squad that they have, they could challenge for a premiership. Only round one. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is the sort of performance that can just have your head in the clouds. They are an exciting football team, and that's the thing as well. It wasn't a boring 50. Every try was bloody fun to watch. So really excited about this Broncos side. Other standouts, both wingers. Selwyn Cobbo scored a hat-trick. Jesse Arthurs somehow I still thought was the better of the two wingers. Not a knock on Cobbo, though. He scored a try. He had like 7 line breaks or something, 3 line breaks, 2 try assists, 120-odd meters or something, 140 even, 147 meters. I thought he was really good. Gemmet, don't really know how to pronounce the first name, but Shibasaki, he's been around a few clubs. Broncos, this is his second stint with the Broncos. Cowboys, he's been out Knights. Sort of just been a toiler. And then here he's come into first grade, and I thought he just provided a really good platform for them. Of course, scored a try, and I think he had a try assist as well in this game. 2 line break assists, 1 try assist, 1 try. Really, really solid game. But I think he's sort of the man that's going to be really good for them in this team. Dean Mariner also played good on the right centre spot with Katoni Staggs injured, but I'd be hard-pressed to leave Shibasaki out when Katoni Staggs comes back, and I think that's what Madge Maguire's doing with them as well. So liked that from Shibasaki. Hunt and Reynolds, unbelievable. Both of them were just unbelievable. We talked about the Trindle and Hines combination. Seems a similar thing here. Both players can roam either side, but why not just go, these players on the left-hand side are yours, Ben, and these players on the right are mine, Adam. And just do that, because these players, they're 2 of the most experienced heads in our game. They've seen and done it all. Just let them play to their strengths, and they did that. And that's why I'm really excited to see and just keep watching this Broncos team moving forward, because with these halves, who just they know how to play some footy. They've done it for a long time, and to combine with each other the way that they did, yeah, it's scary stuff, and I loved what I saw from them. As I said, rattling off a few other names, there's heaps of players. Again, essentially everyone in this Broncos team played well except for, maybe Brendan Piakora, who came on for 1 minute and then got sin-binned and sent off. So that was a tough sight for Brendan Piakora. But Jack Gosiewski, who of course had that second row spot and played the full 80, scored a try. Another toiler who's been brought in here to do a job, and I thought he did just that. So I loved what I saw from him. Corey Pakes was the last man I really, really wanted to mention. I've always liked Corey Pakes, even when he came through the grades as a half. The Broncos have had a surplus of hookers, and they still sort of do. Whether he's the best at the club, maybe not. I still think Blake Moser probably will turn out to be the best player there, but I love what Corey Pakes does. I've always rated him. He looked dangerous from every single time he touched the ball. He never overplayed his hand. Of course, he scored that try, hitting Payne Haas short, wrapping back around, catching the offload and going over, which was a just reward for the sort of player he is. He didn't play out the back to his, halves who demand the ball. He had his eyes up, and he knows that as a half coming through the grades, he can see that. He has that vision. But then he, as I said, never overplays his hand. He has the time where he ducks out back, so they're on a short side play, picks up the ball from dummy half, ducks out to the right, cuts the ball back across the face of the player who played the ball over to, I think it was Hunt on the left-hand side, and they have that left-hand side raid and score a try. Though he didn't need to do that. He could have just, dished to Hunt and they might have still made a break, but he drew the markers in just with his vision, his speed. I love Corey Pakes. I always have. We'll have to see if he can keep it up for a full season, but I think Madge Maguire has obviously shown that he's done the right thing so far by starting Corey Pakes, and I'm excited to see how he keeps going in that hooker role behind this big forward pack for the Broncos. Besides that, as I said, could name every other player. We're not going to do that for the Roosters. Look, honestly, guys, it's the less said, the better here. Really tough night for them, and it could be a tough old season for them as well. I'm predicting it will be, to be honest. There's still a lot of good players in this side. Tedesco, Tupou, Dominic Young, Chad Townsend, short towards the back end of his career, in and out of first grade. He's a premiership winner. He can get you around the park. He's got teams in the last 2 or 3 years to top 4 finishes or top 8 finishes. He can do that. He still can do that with this side. Lindsay Collins, Origin Australian, Connor Watson, Origin, Angus Crichton, the list goes on. There are some fantastic players here, but something is not right. And I'm really, really worried for them. I don't want to say that they didn't look like they wanted to be here, but we mentioned it in the trials, and it was more of the same in this one. James Tedesco did absolutely everything he could in this one, and every single time that the Broncos scored and they're under the posts, he looked like he had no answers. And when James Tedesco, the Australian Origin, Roosters fullback, he's done, again, seen and done it all in this game. When he's got no answers, I'm worried. And yeah, I am. That's sort of where I sit with this Roosters side. They can come back, and I'm sure they will find there's a lot of new players in here. They'll build combos, they'll get some wins, and they'll be better as the season progresses. I don't think they're going close to the finals this year. It could be a bottom 4 season for them. And it's a worrying sort of season, and it's worrying signs for the Roosters. In terms of standout players, not really many. I thought Mark Nwonga-Nitawase had some really good touches. You can see the sort of athlete he is. Still defensively, a lot of issues, but he made 118 metres off 12 runs, had 6 tackles. And honestly, in this game, 10 tackles, 1 missed tackle. So he wasn't as bad as I thought he was. Rob Toya, the other one, was the one that I really, really liked. Now, he did have 6 ineffective tackles, but he was targeted heavily in defense. He made 23, effective tackles as well. So he was really good. But the big thing for me was that try that he set up to Dominic Young. The front on angle of that try, watching him collect that ball and just eyes up, size up, Ben Hunt, I think it was. It would have been Ben Hunt on that left-hand side. He caught that ball and he's looking directly at Ben Hunt, one of the most experienced players in the game. He's done everything, and he had the confidence to just look at him, bang, big right foot step, I'm going through. He backs his talent, he backs his physical, capability, and he just explodes through that, fends off Tedesco, his own teammate, and then links with a beautiful ball at speed, by the way. He was flying, Toya, to get that ball backwards 10, 20 odd meter, I think it was 20 meters across the field to Dominic Young, was an incredible ball that, the step and the talent that he displayed to get through the line, that's all good and well, but I think it's equally as impressive the ball that he threw to Dominic Young that put him away for that try. So I thought Robert Toya looked really good, and there's a reason he's been earmarked as a talent. We've mentioned him a little bit here, probably didn't get to as much last year, which is what we'd like to do, but he's been in and out with injuries, so they've stuck by him. The Roosters, one of their juniors that they've been really happy to, have on their books, and they back him, and he's going to pay them dividends in the long run. Maybe it's this season. He's already showing glimpses of that, but it might be a tough season in general for them. He could be their shining light this season. I thought he was unreal. 10 runs for 141 metres. Of course, the line break, the try assist, 2 try assists and a line break assist, 5 tackle breaks as well. So shout out Rob Toya. Besides that, as I said, guys, sort of the less said, the better. I'm worried about this Roosters team, so we'll just scrap this one off the books. We can dig deeper into them as we go into the season, but for now, that's all I'm going to say about them. The next game, however, was the Tigers and the Knights, and honestly, a very, very scrappy affair for sure. One of my favourites of the round, and I think maybe that's because there were probably 3 or 4 huge blowouts this round, 2 50-point scores, a 42-point that could have been a 50, and then that Warriors game, which is a 22-point loss or something. I like this one. Like, obviously, some scrappy stuff, a lot of errors, which, we'll talk about that now. The Knights got the win 10-8, obviously. I thought the Knights played pretty darn poorly. I thought they were very, very ill-disciplined. They tried to score off almost every single play without really laying a platform and earning the field position to do so, which is a bit of a shame because I thought their forwards were really good. I thought Daniel Saifiti had a fantastic opening stint. I thought Leo Thompson worked his backside off all game. Dylan Lucas was their best player, which we might touch on him a little bit further in depth in a bit. And Tyson Frizzell at lock, I really liked the look of that and the move of him to there, which allowed Kai Pearce to play his more natural right-hand second row as well, which I thought he was excellent in. So the forwards played well, but it was almost like after 2 really good forward plays, doesn't matter if you're in your own half or not, the backs would try something a bit stupid and really just let the forwards down. Now, it was mainly the first half. The second half, they were a bit better in that. But yeah, I thought they were pretty ill-disciplined, and yeah, they weren't really willing to get in a grind with the Tigers and earn that field possession. But in saying that, I also sort of didn't mind it because despite only scoring 10 points, it's a bit paradoxical. I thought they looked more threatening. I thought they looked more dangerous. I was very dubious on the Fletcher Sharp to 5'8". Now, I know he's been a half growing up. I've watched a lot of Fletcher. I'm being a Cessnock boy. Well, I'm not a Cessnock boy. He is, but I'm living very close to old Fletcher. I've always known his capabilities. Didn't know if it was the right time for him to be playing 5'8" in the NRL, but he's an athlete, and he's showed that already. I really like that left-hand shape, the speed that they have across there with Bradman Best, Fletcher Sharp, Dylan Lucas, who's one of the quicker second rowers in the comp, of course, formerly being an outside back as well, and Kalen Ponga sweeping across there. They've got so much talent. On the right-hand side as well, the new signing, James Schiller, I thought he was really good. Got through a lot of work. Let me pull up his stats as well. Would have had a lot of tackle breaks. He had that break on the right-hand side too, I think. Yeah, so that was the Fletcher Sharp try. Yeah, the first try for the Knights would have been when James Schiller, I think this is what I'm getting right. I might be getting it wrong, but James Schiller made a fantastic break, just running hard as he could and just breaking tackles. Got pulled down just before the line, and then Sharp dove over from dummy half. I think I'm getting that correct. And yeah, it just goes to show that now that they can have those 2 wingers just in Greg Marshall and James Schiller just bustling and making heaps of meters. Now, I was, as I said, in the camp, keep Fletcher Sharp there, use his speed. You can get your meters out of Greg Marshall. Fletcher will be good for 110, 120 a game maybe, but you've got that speed, and he was great there last year. But I'm liking the Fletcher Sharp at 5'8". I think he looks really dangerous. James Schiller, 16 runs, 162 metres, 1 line break, 11 tackle breaks for James Schiller. Greg Marju had 5, to put that in perspective. Not that that's a bad knock by any means, but to over double Greg Marju's tackle breaks when he's built for that, Thought he was unreal. Schiller. Marju, 17 runs, 167 metres and a try as well. So very good game from the wingers. I thought the centres had their moments. Dane Gagai, I feel like I remember him bombing a try, but again, he's still doing his normal thing. Bradman Best was good. As I said, I liked what I saw from the Knights, despite a scrappy game, despite very ill-disciplined in that first half especially. I liked it, and I tipped this team to be my, wooden spoon team this year. It's early days. I'm not willing to fully go back on it, but I don't think that they will be. I think they have enough points in them now, despite, as I said, only scoring 10 against a team that's come last. It's a different Tigers team. It's a different Knights team. And I think they'll grow into this competition, and I'm really excited to see what they end up with by the end of the season as it progresses. In terms of standouts, as I said, we mentioned all those forwards. We've mentioned Fletcher Sharp. We mentioned Bradman Best, Dane Gagai, Schiller, the likes. Ponga, of course, absolutely fantastic. I think he got all the almost max Dalian points from this game. He probably should have, despite, as I said, low scoring. It was through no fault of his own. He created almost everything for them. 200 metres, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 6 tackle breaks. And in defence, he was fantastic. There were many times that the Tigers put in a little grubber kick, and Ponga was the person to clean it up, get out of the end goal, and just plays like that kept him in the side. There's a reason he's the captain. He's showing that in his actions now. I thought he was tremendous, to be honest. And a lot of people sitting back looking at stats and going, how did he get 6 points? It's a slow-scoring game. He's not going to score 3 tries when the team's only got 2. It's what he's doing in every other facet of the game that makes him so good. I thought he was unreal. I really liked Jaden Brayley when he was out there. I thought Phoenix Crossland was good as well. I liked that they also were able to play them for on the field at the same time and have their strengths in different areas. So I liked that. And the last man I wanted to go a little bit more in depth to was Dylan Lucas. Thought he was fantastic, and I think this new second row pairing, and of course Tyson Frizzell at lock, is a new wave for them. 11 runs for 151 metres Dylan Lucas has, of course, bolstered by a line break, 4 tackle breaks as well. He was just an Adonis on that left-hand side, to be honest. I loved what I saw from him. So, yeah, honestly, it's, as I said, scrappy game. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what the Knights bring moving forward. For the Tigers, I'm not going to be harsh at all either. That first half, I thought they were by far the better side, and they kept themselves in this. Their defense was really, really good. I think they've got a lot more in them. Now, the big thing for them is, they showed that grit, and it's something that they've been lacking for the last few years, hence why they've got those wooden spoons. They showed that grit in this one, and realistically, it's a lot of new combinations. They've still got players to come back into this side, notably Jareem Buller and Appy Coruscant, 2 members of the spine that were missing. And Lockie Galvin, I wouldn't say he had a poor game. I think stats-wise, he's probably fantastic, and he looks dangerous every time he touches the ball. Yeah, look, 15 runs, 148 metres from 5/8. But I think Jerome Luai and Galvin, they're going to take a little bit of time to gel because they were running sideways a bit. More so Galvin than Luai. I think Luai actually had a pretty darn solid first game for the Tigers. I thought he was quite good. And I don't think Galvin was bad by any means, but he did grab across field a lot and didn't really create enough space for his outside men. Solomona Fatape as well. They in the trial, we saw them explode on that right-hand side. What Galvin was doing this time didn't really allow for his outside backs to have that space. So I'm not putting it all on Galvin, but it's definitely something they'll build on and move forward. So they're 8 points scored. I'm not too worried. Again, as well, the Knights' defense was brilliant. So I can't put it all on that. But I just wanted to sort of note that about Galvin. Probably less crabbing across field and more straightening into the line. This side will just be so much better for it. But that's not really a knock on Galvin. He's one of the best young talents we have. And as I said, I still think he had a pretty darn good game. The other big ones, as I said, Luai played well in his debut. Terrell May, 65 minutes. I think he punched out the full opening 40 as well. Honestly, he could play a full game, full 80 minutes the way he goes about his business. 21 runs, 189 metres from Terrell May. He had 5 offloads, which is ridiculous, and he made 34 tackles with 0 missed, 3 ineffective. He looks so fit. He looks very trim, and he just goes about his work. I am excited for this Tigers team. There's so much to like. I know it's a loss in round one against a side that I didn't fancy too highly, and they only scored one try. Sure, that's all good and well. I don't care. I'm so excited about everything they've got going on. I thought Jarrell Skelton was also good in debut. He scored their only try. 23 runs for 210 metres, 5 tackle breaks. That's what you brought him to the club to do. That's what you want out of him and Taruva. Taruva, 166 metres as well. So there's your wingers getting through your work. You need that. Heath Mason got through 180. He was solid. Alex Twal, we mentioned a bit again in our preseason magazine that I like the idea of running essentially 3 front rowers to start. Alex Twal is your lock to start the game, get him through that tough stuff. He is the only Tigers player, by the way, who didn't miss a tackle. And there are some missed fucking tackles in this game. I'll just sort of run over them quickly. This is just going down, so I'm not going to list players. I'm just going to try and go through how many tackles were missed. 3 from we're listing players. 3 missed tackles from Mason, 2 from Taruva, 1 from Dewey, 4 from Fartape, 3 from Skelton, who didn't make a single one, by the way, 4 from Galvin, 5 from Luai, 0 from Terrell May, but he did have 3 ineffective, 6 missed tackles from De Silva, 7 missed tackles from Fanua Pole, 4 from Fainu, 3 Seyfarth. You get the gist. 0 missed tackles, 0 ineffective tackles, 100% tackle efficiency, 34 tackles, Alex Twal. He is a machine, and I love the way that they're playing with those 3 front rowers. He got through some good work in running too. He was pretty hard to handle, maybe not tackle break wise, but he runs his lines well. He identifies space and he gets on the front more often than not. 108 meters from him as well. I love that to start. Run with Fanua Pole, Terrell May, and Alex Twal, and then you bring Jack Bird on, who I thought looked quite threatening as well, and let him play a more out there style of footy. So, as I said, there's a lot to like from the Tigers. I'm not taking a massive amount from this game. The big thing I'm taking is the grit and the new signings. They all showed what they're about, and they showed why they were brought to the club. So I love what they showed in this game. I really enjoyed the game, but we'll move on to the next one. So the next one, the Rabbitohs and Dolphins. It is the Rabbitohs and Dolphins. I have my notes wrong. Anyway, got my Rabbitohs and Dolphins somewhere around here. Regardless, it was a 16-14 scoreline for the Rabbitohs. I tipped the Dolphins, but that was before all of the news broke about players not making the trip to Sydney. And, for all those affected, I think it's more, very, very fair. There's some idiots out there talking about they shouldn't get their spot back and why are they not going. You get paid to do this. Mate, you get paid to play a sport. You get paid to do a job. You get paid to do anything that's a job. This is a job. Your families are much more important. If you're thinking that people affected by the cyclones aren't taking days off their job to be with their family and fix houses and do all this stuff, you're kidding yourself. I have no problems with the people the players who took their time away from the game to stay in Queensland and be with their families. And I think that's a contributor to this scoreline. I still think the Dolphins probably get up if they have those players. But we just want to express all our love and gratitude to the players who, did move away from their families to make this game happen and come down to Sydney and to happen. And a great love to all of those who are affected by the floods and by the cyclone in Queensland. We're thinking of you here at the Chip and Chase. But over to the game itself, another pretty good game in the sense that it was close and I enjoyed it. There were errors, there were scrappy parts. It wasn't, the greatest game, but it's round one. This was the sort of round one footy I was expecting, teams finding themselves. It's new coaches for each of these sides. Wolf's been in the building for a while for the Dolphins, but he's the head coach now. Wayne Bennett back at the Rabbitohs. The injuries, the players that didn't come into the side, I think it was fairly even squads on paper for this game, of course, with the names missing from either team. They went into this side relatively even, and they have a relatively even scoreline. I enjoyed it. I found enough in this game that both these sides, especially the Rabbitohs, who I thought might have been in for a pretty rugged year after their trials and with their injuries, I saw enough in this to know that they'll get a few wins. It also helped that Cody Walker, who was expected to be out for this one, obviously suited up with all their other injuries, and I thought he played really well, and he's the sort of steady hand that they needed to get them around the park. But the big thing for the Rabbitohs here is just getting this win and playing gritty. I really liked the sort of the defense that they had in this one. Where are my notes on this game? Am I in the wrong sort of one? Eagles, Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Dolphins, here they are. So I've got them here. I wrote down here when I was watching the game, the Rabbitohs defense. Now, they were very up and in defensively. They were giving the Dolphins no room to move. They were constantly just flying up and tackling them. And more often than not, they shut it down. The off chances that they, were caught out, that's all good. Normally they scrambled back pretty well and they weren't fully caught out with tries. I'm pretty sure Osako did score one on the right-hand side, which was caught out on. But most of the time, the Rabbitohs were really, really good defensively by giving the Dolphins no space. And that sort of reflected in the other Osako try where they were up on the kicker. They got the no kick away. Then it's kicked into the back of a player by Sean O'Sullivan, and then they score by playing off the back of it. So it was against, a not set defense at that point. I love their defense, especially from a few players that I've written down here. Jack Whiten, his defensive intensity, his hits, the way he was just leading by example. I loved how he played. I thought he was unbelievable. And Lachlan Hubner was the other one. So, of course, he was one of the boys that Wayne Bennett brought down to the Rabbitohs from the Dolphins from his tenure there. Only played a handful of games at the Dolphins. He's 24, 25, I think. And comes in here, starts at lock forward for Cameron Murray, and I thought he was fantastic defensively. There was many, many times. There's one time where he shoots out of the line to, I think it's Isaiah Katoa, sort of crabbing across field over to the left. It looked like they were making space, and Hubner sprints and just throws him to ground. And there were plenty of those that he did in the game. That was the one that I just remember seeing and just going, okay, this Hubner's the real deal, and there's a reason he has got that starting lock role while Cam Murray is out. So thought he was fantastic. Shot a lot of heart, played 59 minutes as well. Really like what I'm seeing from him. I think he's going to be a fan favourite for this Rabbitohs side. Jai Gray was the other big one for the Rabbitohs for me. I think he ran for 280 metres. Let me just double check that meter count while we're here. But I believe it was something absurd like that. Yep, 280 metres from Jai Gray in this one. Just absolutely everywhere. 25 runs, 116 post-contact, try assist, line break assist, 4 tackle breaks. The try assist to Tyrone Munro on that left-hand side. He doesn't get the love he deserves. He genuinely doesn't. Every time Latrell Mitch was out of this side over these past 2 seasons, he's come in and been fantastic. I can't believe that when we're talking Rabbitohs full-strength sides, he's not even getting a bait on the bench. He's got to be out there. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, Jack White and Campbell Graham are your centres. You don't move Latrell back there. And with how Latrell's looking when he comes back, you probably want him at fullback. But not Isaiah Tass. He was good too, though. Shout out Isaiah Tass. Jai Gray, whenever he is at fullback, whenever he's on the field in general, he's the best player on the park for this Rabbitohs side. And he was again in this game. I thought he was unbelievable. A very close second, in my opinion, probably Jamie Humphries. I'm so impressed with this guy. Someone, again, we've talked about extensively on other podcasts this year, last year, and in our posts. He's an out-and-out first grader. He's an out-and-out half. The Seagulls missed a trick by trying to make him a utility /9. He's a halfback. I think he stays as this halfback for the Rabbitohs, and he holds on that for a long time. I think it's going to be very hard for Lewis Dodd to get that jersey back off him because he's just an unreal player. And his body type, like he is built like a Greek god. And we said this again on the Casual Athletes podcast last night. So go and check that one out if you haven't already. But he is built like a Greek god. He could play back row with the sort of the physique he has, how big he is, how strong he is, how chiseled he is. And that goes to show in how physical he can be. 30 tackles. He was targeted in defense, and he came up with 30 tackles and didn't miss one. He's such a good footballer, and I can't wait to see him grow with Cody Walker and see how they manage this combination. So I wanted to give a shout out to him. Other standouts, Campbell Graham and his return back from over a year out of the game with injury. 22 runs, 202 metres, doing Campbell Graham things. Love what he's about. So happy to see him back. Beyond that, Jai Arrow came up with a few huge plays, played the full 80 in the back row. again, a player that stats don't reflect what he does. He's all about effort and attitude, and he showed that. I thought he was unbelievable. Besides that, maybe not too many names that stand out. Tyrone Munro scored 2, and I think now he's done his collarbone again, and now he's looking at 5 weeks on the sideline, which is just gutting for Tyrone Munro, because he's finally starting to show what he's always been about. So sorry to hear that, and a lot of love to him for the injury. And Keon Kaloa-Matangi would have been the other standout for me. I thought he was very hard to deal with. He looks very trim, very fit. 186 metres he made as well. So shout out them. But yeah, it was a very good win for the Rabbitohs, especially, the circumstances of who they're missing. To get these wins early in the season while they have those injuries, that's going to be big for them if they're going to build into the finals in the back end when they get their names back. So massive win for them. For the Dolphins, I'm not taking much away from it. As I said, with all the circumstances, not just the players that they had missing, through staying back in Queensland, but for the players who did make that trip, it's got to be in the back of their minds. You can't believe that everyone there is 100% with their mind on footy. There's so much going on, so many more important things in footy that would have been on their minds, and they still came and played a solid brand of footy. I'm not too worried about how they played. There was good performances across the park. I'm not going to worry about a 2-point defeat to the Rabbitohs in round 1. I think it's just a write-off of a week with everything that sort of happened to them. They showed glimpses. They showed what they're going to be about this year. I've still got a bit of faith in them, and I can't wait to see how they progress. In terms of standouts, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow I really liked, mainly from the sense that he was running. He had his hands on the ball all the time. He wasn't taking 13 runs a game. He was taking 21 for 228 metres. I did help that he had 2 line break assists. Oh, yeah, that's right. The line break assist and try assist. The hands. It looks like, he's running the ball more. He'll be up around that 200 metres mark maybe every week or every second week, which is what we want out of him. But the hands, his ball playing is coming on leaps and bounds, and that is a scary thing for someone as threatening as Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. If you have to worry about a pass and you bite for the slightest bit on a dummy because he's got a certain pass in his game, bang, he's taken off. But if you don't bite, if you go, hang on, I'm holding my line here because I know he can skin me with his speed, and you stay on him, he's going to fire a beautiful pass to the corner, which is what he did in this one. I love what I'm seeing from Hamiso. Again, tough game with all the circumstances. Had 9 tackle breaks in there as well. I think he's in for a huge, huge season. So really excited about Hammer. Jermaine Asako, really good with the 2 tries. Jake Averillo had some good moments. Herbie Farnworth had really good moments, just doing his usual business. 183 metres from him. Junior Tupou, a solid sort of first stint for the club. Daniel Saifiti, I thought, was really good in the middle, 165 metres, which is what you need out of him. And the big one for me also, Tom Gilbert making his return from injury, punched out 56 minutes at lock, 98 metres from 12 runs. He made like 50 tackles, didn't he? 59 tackles, holy shit. Jeremy Marshall-King, 55 as well, which is an insane knock. But yeah, 59 tackles from Tom Gilbert in 56 minutes. That's why he's the captain. What a fucking knock. He is a unit. So yeah, I'm not taking too much away from the Dolphins here. Probably haven't spent much time talking about them that you might want to hear about them if you're a Dolphins fan. It's a tough week, as I said. So many things going on. Let's just worry about all of that. And next week, when the Dolphins come out with a massive, great performance, which I'm sure they have in them, we'll talk about them a bit more extensively then. But that'll do for the Dragons-Dolphins side of things, which moves us on to the Dragons-Dolphins, the Rabbitohs-Dolphins, but it does move us on to the Dragons-Bulldogs game. Now, this one was my favourite game of the round, and it wasn't for a lot of it. I tipped the Dragons, and the Bulldogs came out to a pretty commanding lead, but just from the start, there was just so much passion and energy from both sides. There were early errors forced by, both sides through big hits and certain tackles and certain plays. And the way that they roar when they force these errors, the way that everyone gets around their players, pats them on the back, and they're yelling and screaming. The Bulldogs did it first, I think, force an error. And then the Dragons maybe a set later did the same thing, and they're roaring, screaming. And I'm like, this is the energy, that Dragons-Bulldogs rivalry that I really want to see. And from that moment, I was pumped, and I'm just sitting here watching it on the sidelines. Can you imagine? Not even on the sidelines. I'm sitting here watching it on the couch. Can you imagine being there at the stadium as a fan, as a player on the bench, as a coach staff, as a player on the field, when your players are forcing them and you're roaring with energy, you're like, get around me, we're going at it. That's what I'm here for. And from that moment, I'm like, yeah, this is my favourite game of the round. I'm already just so infatuated with it. And then it keyed it off a bit. The Bulldogs went on a really good run, showing a lot of great attack, which is, they were known gritty defensively last year. Attack sometimes let them down. They looked really good across the park here. The big player for me, Connor Tracy, I thought was unreal. Another one of my fan favourites here on the Chip and Chase podcast. Always had a lot of time for Connor Tracy. Admittedly had a really poor trial in the final trial of the preseason. Came out in this one, 20 runs, 224 metres, 1 try, 1 line break assist, 1 try assist, 6 tackle breaks, and was really, really sound defensively. Loved what I saw. I thought he was the best player in the park. Maybe you could have a case for a certain new signing that came off the bench, Satili Tupanua. 2 tries from Tupanua coming off the bench, 42 minutes, running hard lines. He had 19 runs for 171 metres. He made our team of the week, in case you guys haven't seen that over on the Instagram page. If you're not following, go check it out. Show it some love. A lot of hard work goes into them. We're not covering them on the podcast anymore because we're trying to cut these down and I'm already rambling too much. But yeah, go show that some love on the page. Loved what Satili Tupanua brought. Thought he was aggressive. He brought Angie. He ran every hard line to perfection. Scored 2 tries, 5 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks. He was fantastic. And that's the sort of player that the Dogs have gone out, they've sought out to get, and they've got him. So loved what I saw from him. Also loved the fact that we got to see Kickow and Preston. Well, Preston played 80, Kickow played 78 minutes. So it wasn't at the expense of their 2 dynamic, just weapon second rowers to get Tupanua on the field, and to get him running wide, you didn't have to take these players off. So I really enjoyed that. I thought Preston was really good in his effort areas, had some really good runs where he's just shaky, he had great leg speed, shaking off defenders and always finding his front. Loved what I saw from him. 122 metres. I assume he made 40-odd tackles, 30 tackles from him. That's a down week from little Preston. I thought Marcelo Montoya was good, scoring a try in his return to the club and making good metres. Wilson was someone that we had in our tips for the try scorer. I liked him against that right-hand side or the left-hand side of the Dragons, and he did cross over and he played a good game. But just, yeah, in general, a really, really solid first performance from the Bulldogs, but it wasn't without a bit of scare factor in it, because that Dragons side decided to come back. So it was... Yeah, the Bulldogs didn't score from the 51st minute, and then we had a 55th, 67th, and 72nd try from the Dragons. Would have been a lot closer as well if they kicked their goals. Holmes missing 2 out of 4. But I really liked the way that the Dragons played as well. Like Christian Tuipulotu scored a hat-trick. He was layering up. I love the way he played. Gets through a lot of work, which is what they need. But which try was it? I can't even remember. Would have been one of the Christian Tuipulotu tries. But they had just offloads galore on this left-hand side. Just offload. Then it went back to the middle through an offload. Then it's Lachlan Ilias taking on. I thought he was home and hosed. Fantastic tackle from Connor Tracy, cut him down. And then just off the space of all these incredible lines run, hard lines and offloads, they just spread it to the left while Tracy's out of position because he's just made that cover tackle on the other side of the field. They get over the way to Tuipulotu. Would have been that last try. And I just like seeing that from the Dragons, a team that's sort of been notoriously pretty boring in attack. Seeing what they've got now on that left-hand side with Holmes, with Gutherson, who's not an exciting player, in quotation marks. I love what he brings to the field. But he's an attacking player whether you like it or not. Whether it's, turbo and the numbers he punches out. What Gutho creates through his vision, effort areas, all of his different facets of the game are fantastic. And I thought he was really, really good in this one. And yeah, they've got those attacking weapons. They can have a bit of fun and play some footy. And I thought they did, especially in that second half. It's just a shame that they let the Bulldogs get way too far ahead to really mow them down. In terms of standouts, we mentioned Tuipulotu with his hat trick, also made our team of the week. 17 runs, 174 metres, 9 tackle breaks. Moses Sully and Valentine Holmes, the centres, both tremendous. Fiona had a solid performance. Lachlan Ilias, he had a couple errors, but he also had some really, really good touches. I can see this combination working. Toby Couchman played 70 minutes at front row. They're going for that, I guess, a little bit of that combination of the big units and then sort of more mobile units in Toby Couchman. Thought he was really good. Jack DeBellin essentially would have played the full game if he didn't have that HIA. Played 54 minutes, 130 metres from 16 runs. probably a few lot offloads, 37 tackles. He was great. And then the young debutant, Hamish Stewart, again, we mentioned on the casual athlete. Really, I didn't think he'd be so close to getting into this side. I thought there was a few players ahead of him, like Dylan Egan, who was 18th man, Loco Pacifici Tonga, who we have huge raps on. A few players I thought were ahead of Hamish, but he's jumped ahead, and I thought he was really solid on debut. I think he made 40-odd tackles. Yeah, 38 tackles, only 2 missed in 43 minutes on debut. I thought he was really good. And then the last man I want to mention, Jacob Little. I think the Dragons, they really needed him on there a lot sooner. I can't believe he only played 26 minutes in this one. And as soon as he came on, he scored one of the best individual tries of the season in round one. It could already be the best individual try of the season, running 75 metres or whatever it was, single-handedly as a hooker from dummy half, beating everyone, beating Connor Tracy off a right foot step and then for speed. And they only had him for 26 minutes. You need him on more. He was probably the Dragons' best player last year in general. You need him on for more. And you can keep Cook out there. Cook played 58. You can put him on a lock forward role. You can put him on anywhere. You just need Little out there. Because once he was on, he was their best player, arguably. And, they needed him on for a longer period of time, in my opinion. But for the Dragons, it's a good first hit out. I think they got what they wanted, especially from their new signings. For the Bulldogs, they got the win. They showed a good level of attack. They'd be disappointed in the way that they let the Dragons back into the game, but I think that's more so on what this Dragons team can do this year, less so on the Bulldogs defensively. So I think both teams got a lot from this game and are in for some pretty solid seasons. The Dragons I've had sneaking into my top 8. We'll have to see how that goes. I think these two will be there and thereabouts, very similar for the rest of the season, and I think it was a good reflection of that in the first game. Let's move on down to the final 2 games. I've already hit that hour mark, so we're going to try and make this quicker, which is hard to do because the next game is the Manly Seagulls defeating the North Queensland Cowboys 42-12, and the Seagulls is about 48 different players I want to talk about in this team because they were unreal. But let's start on the Cowboys. Look, for such an attacking team that we've known them, I know they've lost a few players, and that's all. It's going to take a bit of time for them to click. But for such an attacking team that we know the Cowboys to be, I thought they played with a severe lack of energy, to put it lightly, out there. They played very sideways, which, they tend to do, but they did it with hardly any pace and no straight runners to trouble the Manly defense and to hold up defensive lines. It was just spread it right, spread it left, and no one hitting holes and running hard to hold up defenders. So I was a bit worried about that, but offensively probably still isn't their issue necessarily. I think there's a few other things that this Cowboys team should be worried about. For instance, the fact that they had 42 points put on them, and I'll be honest, it could have been more. It probably should have been more. The Seagulls stopped scoring after the 54th minute, so there was still 26 minutes where they just sort of put the cue in the rack. They could have made another 50-point game in round 1, and they probably should have. So I'm worried. I'm worried about this Cowboys side. I thought their second trial against the Storm was really good, and it eased a bit of my concerns from their first one, but this was more of that first one where they had no effort, no energy, they didn't want to be there. And the big thing about the Cowboys in this one, they got absolutely rolled by the Seagulls forward pack, and I think we're sort of, combining the Seagulls chat into this part. The Seagulls, who have notoriously been pretty light on, arguably pretty light on in the forward pack the last few seasons. And they've got some good, additions to the club. Taukeiaho, Jazz Tavanga, some other fellas I'm probably missing, but they've got some good signings to shore that up. But it's by no means top pack in the NRL. But they rolled the Cowboys. They absolutely decimated the Cowboys through the forward pack. And then if the Manly forward pack can get a roll on, it's lights out, because that they've got so much talent in their back line. They will make you pay in every, part of the park. They will score anywhere with that team. So if you lose that forward pack, you're done. And the Cowboys, they had no answers for it. They actually genuinely had none. They went very light out in the pack. Sam McIntyre at prop, who I like, always been a pretty big fan of McIntyre. And I don't think he had a poor game, but again, 96 meters. In fact, let's talk about that now. The only Cowboys forward to run for over 100 meters was Cohen Hess, coming off the back of an ACL injury, his first game in however long. He only played 29 minutes and he ran 13 times for 129 meters. No other Cowboys forward ran for 100 meters. Your next best was 96 from McIntyre, but then you had 62 from McLean, 71 Bateman, 16 from 2 runs from Jeremiah Nanai, which is just not good enough. 58 from Cotter, 87 Edwards, 56 from Neem. Cohen Hess, by the way, while we're on him, thought he was really good in his return, and I'm so happy to see him back. He bent the line on multiple occasions, so he can be a bit of a difference, but God, they need Tamalolo back. They need some size. I know the game's sort of going away from a huge forward pack, but you need big boppers. There's always going to be a space for a space in the game for the big boppers in rugby league, and they need that. They went too small against a Seagulls forward pack that's pretty big. You consider Mole Olakawatu, one of the biggest second rowers out there. Daniel Paseka's probably top 5 biggest front rowers in the game. Tauke Aho's a big body. There's big boppers on this Seagulls side, and they just rolled the Cowboys through the middle. So, yeah, that's where I think the Cowboys have their concerns, and Tamalolo can only shore that up so much, especially with the way Todd Payton seems to want to use him. Now, we all know we saw him play for Tonga and how good he was there. We know Tamalolo has 60-minute games and 200 meters a game in him. He can still be that forward. I don't think the Cowboys want to use him that way, which I'm disagreeing in a sense. I don't want him playing 60 minutes week in, week out either, but you need more minutes out of him. You need more production out of him, especially, and I think this game just sort of shows that, to be honest. So yeah, very disappointing for the Cowboys. They've got a lot to turn around defensively, and again, just they need to win the battle in the ruck. They need to win the forward pack battle, and if they don't, they're going to see a lot more scorelines like this. But there's going to be plenty of days that they find a dry track up in North Queensland, and their attack, which, as I said, looked pretty dismal in this one, their attack will click into gear, and we know what they can produce. But this was a sour sight from them. In terms of standouts for them, as I said, Cohen Hess was really good. Viliami Failea, I really liked. I thought he was really good defensively. The Seagulls didn't target his edge too much. They went more so at Jackson Purdue, the young rookie, and they found a lot of luck there. But Failea, I wanted to outline him. 100% of tackle efficiency from Viliami Failea, which has been a big thing a big issue in his game. It's always sort of plagued him in his career, hindered him, and he was really good in this one. Also took 18 runs for 207 meters, so I thought he was really good. Braden Burns was probably the Cowboys' best player on the field. He scored one of their only tries, and it was just purely him, to be honest. So he scored that try. He had 213 meters, line break, 9 tackle breaks. He was just really good. And Jackson Purdue, despite being skinned, had a really tough ask. You're putting him up against Tomole Olakawatu, Ruben Garrick on the right-hand side on debut. And yeah, he missed a few tackles. He got skinned a few times, but he tried every time. He was in every tackle. He was in every run. If there was a break, he was the first man chasing back. So I'm not too harsh on Jackson Purdue from this game. I think there's a lot left of him. I'm very confident in him as a player. I love him as a kid. To me, he's in his 3rd or 4th best position here. He's probably better as a fullback and 5/8 and halfback before centre, but he's a talent. Nurture him, he'll get better from this, and I think you can find a lot in him in the centres. And the last man I wanted to mention, not for necessarily having a good game, but Tom Duffy in his NRL debut. I don't think he had a bad game, and there's a lot of calls for him already to be, shifted out of the side and Clifford to come in, and I don't really know why. Duffy came out, he made 25 tackles for 1 miss on debut, heavily targeted in defence. He had a forward pack that was monstered, and you can't do anything as a half if your forward pack is just getting dicked on the way that they were by the Seagulls. So I thought he had a few good kicks. I thought he was really solid defensively. I thought he'd done as much as he could do, and there's no halfback in the game that could have done much more than Tom Duffy. So I think it's a sad debut with the scoreline, but I think he'll come back better from this. And I think he's still the player that you want to have at halfback. And I've always been a fan of Clifford since he came through the grades. I thought he was going to be the next big halfback, but I think he's had his shot, and he might develop into that at some point. But I'd be willing to go a little bit younger here and go with Duffy, who has proved it as well in the lower grades. So I'm happy to hold still with Duffy. For the Seagulls, in terms of standouts, we've mentioned a couple, like their forward pack. Let's just run through their forward pack numbers, by the way. 152 metres from Paseka, only 84 from 9 runs from Taukeaho, 156 from 15 runs from Olakawatu, 80 from Ben Trebojevic, 145 metres from Jake Trebojevic, which was really good to see. He was bending the line on a few different occasions. And even their bench players, Bullymore, 11 runs, 141 metres and a try, and Toa Sipley, 12 runs, 116 metres and a try. So that just goes to show the stark difference, the stark contrast in the two forward packs. The other standouts for the Seagulls, honestly, I could name every player on there. I thought they all played really, really well. Thought Luke Brooks looked really dangerous in his running game, 23 runs, 164 metres. Kula had moments, Garrick had moments, Saab had like 7 line breaks or something, 5 line breaks, which is absurd. Scored a try. He did bomb a couple, or one, at least one. Had a fair few errors, to be fair, Saab, but still a solid game. You can have a few errors when they're all in attacking opposition and you're putting this scoreline on. Lehigh Hopewade, I thought was really good. He ran for over 200 metres as well with 223. Daly Cherry Evans and Tom Trebojevic were the big ones for me, though, which is what you want because they're your marquee players, the ones that are on so much money. Cherry Evans has 10 years left in him. The way he is playing, I can't believe retirement's even been sort of discussed this year. He looks unbelievable. He has complete control of the game. He's still got pace about everything he does. I love the way he plays the game. I used to not like Daly Cherry Evans, but as you get older and you realise how good he is, you've got to respect him. And he, again, showed in this one that he's got so much left in the tank. 19 runs, 133 metres, 1 try, 2 line break assists, 2 line breaks and 2 try assists. Probably a fair few kick meters. Fuck all kick meters. 234 because they didn't need to kick in this game. He was unreal. And, of course, Tom Trebojevic, he just makes footy look easy, to be honest. Like, it's like he's playing a video game and it's on easy difficulty. 23 runs, 206 metres, 3 line break assists, 1 line break, 2 try assists, 8 tackle breaks, and really good defensively as well. I mean, it says 1 tackle made, 3 missed, but not all missed tackles are equal. He was very good defensively in the way he positioned himself. It doesn't seem like the 2023 where he's the fastest player on the field. He's still fast. He's still got everything to him. But it just, for some reason, anything he does, it just turns to gold. He's such a talented player. He had a fantastic game in this one. We are going to move on, though, because this podcast has been going way too long. Let's go into the final game of the round, that being the Storm taking on the Eels. And, of course, the Storm won this one with another very comprehensive victory, 56-18. I didn't see this coming. I thought in my bets, which again, follow me on Dabble if you are of age and want to give us a follow and tune in and have a bit of a laugh with the bets that we do. Follow us on Dabble. You can see the bet that we put on for this one. We got pretty close. We I said both wingers to score. They very much did. I said Sean Bloor to score, which he almost did. Ryan Pappenhausen scooted through very early, past to Bloor, which would have been a try, but Iongi knocked it down. It bounced back into Pappenhausen's hands and he scored it, but that would have been the Bloor try. But the other thing that would have let us down anyway was we had Eels with a plus 24.5 line, thinking that no way they get blown out this much. They've got a new coach, new players. They want to show out and put on a show and show that they're here for it. Nah, doesn't matter. They were very poor, but honestly, this Storm team, they're winning the comp. They are unbelievable. I don't know what more you can say about this Storm side. They look fantastic. Ryan Pappenhausen wasn't meant to be back until round 3 this year with injuries, and he was taking on the line every single run. He looked unbelievable. I don't know. I don't know what you can say about this Storm side. I really, really don't. Pappenhausen stats, let's have a look at them right now. 2 tries, 15 runs, 153 metres, 3 line breaks, 1 line break assist, and 5 tackle breaks. He was our fullback in the team of the week that we posted. Just everything he touched, he was bursting through, and he bombed some too. Like, there was one where he could have linked up with, I think it was Cameron Munster. He made a break on the right-hand side, screamed through, Munster's backing him up, and he dummied, and he got tackled. If he passes, another try. Like, it could have been a 60, 70-plus score line from the Storm. They sort of, tailored off in the end. They took a few players off, like Jerome Hughes got a rest. So they weren't worried about the scoreline, but this could have been even uglier for the Eels. So it might be flattering, this 56-18. The Storm were unbelievable. Ryan Pappenhausen was electric as I've ever seen him, especially for a player that shouldn't have even been playing the game with his injury. Cameron Munster looks the fittest I've seen him in a long, long time, and he had his hands on everything. He was just, 3 line break assists, 2 try assists, 3 tackle breaks. As I said, could have had that try that was bombed. He was unreal. I own him as super coach, so I was watching and just loving life. Jerome Hughes sort of took a backseat in this one, but still scored a try and had himself a nice little game. Josh King was really good, scoring a try, which he doesn't get too many the front rower, but he was really good. Elias Katoa, we talked about Jacob Little's individual try in the few games before. Eli Katoa might have rivaled him already as well in round 1 with one of the best individual tries you will see. The way he beat the side and just stood up the fullback, he was fantastic. Everyone in this Eels side was great. Everyone was great. And that's not even mentioning the wingers. The 12 runs, 156 metres, 2 tries from Coates, and the 1 try from the intercept from Warbrick, 12 runs, 187 metres from Will Warbrick. Their centres were excellent. Jack Howarth had 2 try assists, 2 line breaks, 7 tackle breaks, 249 metres. Nick Meaney had 12 runs for 190 metres. He had a try. He had 20 points. He had line break. He had a try assist. He had 2 tackle breaks. Like, there is every single player on this Storm side that can be complimented. But for me, it's just the club performance. Again, as I said, up against a very poor opposition in the Eels, but you can only play what's in front of you. I have so much faith that this team will be in the grand final, and I think they win the premiership this year. Round 1, to see them do this, everything that they did, they weren't afraid. Like, they looked like, and fair enough, it's a pretty, it's a team that's been together for a while now. Essentially everyone's sort of been there for a while, except, Stefano, who was signed this year. But they just look like it's easy. We talked about Tom Trbojevic having it on easy mode. This team has it on easy mode. They all know each other back to front, and whether it's in their own half, whether it's in the Eels half, they can attack and they can look good doing it. Which Craig Bellamy notoriously been pretty reserved. If you make your errors, you're gonna fucking know about it from Bellamy. But these guys, they're not afraid to play. They're football players, and they will play what's in front of them from whenever they are, wherever they are on the field. They will play what's in front of them, and they make it work every single time. I'm so excited about what the Storm pull out this year. I probably should have ended on them, because now we're going to have to end on the Eels, which is a bit disappointing. Eels, disappointing. Yeah, I've said it twice now. Very sort of poor game to come out, as I said, with all the fresh faces and the fresh coach, and you want to impress and you want to say, I'm here, this is the new era of the Eels and I'm here for a reason. They didn't do that. I didn't expect to win. I didn't expect them to, even if it's a 30-0 loss or whatever it is, not great, but 56 points in round 1 with all these new faces. We always talk about that you concede 50, you can't win the comp. 56 points in round 1, and it could have been a lot more. They scored 3 tries very close to the end of the game. Oh no, Jake Tungo scored in the 37th, sorry, but we did have the Will Penasini 68th minute and Isaiah Iongi 76th. I'll be honest, I turned the game off at probably the 72nd minute mark. I didn't even see the Iongi try. I'm pretty happy with it for Supercoach. And statistically, he looks pretty good here. 24 runs, 178 metres, 1 line break, 3 tackle breaks in that try. And I don't think he was poor, to be fair. I think he was one of the, if you want to call it a shining light, might be a bit of a stretch, because I don't think there were any positives, but I thought he did as much as he could in a game like this. I thought Sean Russell I actually liked. He was tracking back and making a lot of effort plays. He chased Nick Meaney all the way on his runaway try. There were a few players that were putting in effort, but then there were a few that weren't, like Helmut Tulangi was abysmal. He got hooked really, really early, then got brought back on through injury and just, it never looked like he wanted to be there, which is sort of how his second trial went, and it's very worrying signs. Junior Paolo back from injury and one of my favourites, didn't have any role on in the middle. Brendan Hands didn't have a run. He had 27 minutes out there and then was taken off and never got put back on. There's really not many positives. You can say Sam Tuivati, I think he was in jersey 21. Yeah, jersey 21, there he is. He came on. He wasn't even meant to play this game. He came on and had some good moments. Matt Dory, I thought, was pretty darn good in his time on the field. I thought he was easily like the best sort of player off their bench this year, and I'm a big Charlie Geimer fan. I think Geimer's a better player, but I loved what I saw from Matt Dury, to be honest. I think he has to be their second rower. Now, I think Kelmer, I'd have the red stripe through him, unfortunately, after that in the trial. I think he's gone. There's a couple, quote-unquote positives. Riley Smith making his NRL debut. Awful game to make your debut, losing like that. But he played 53 minutes off the bench and made 26 tackles, and he's a footballer. We mentioned him a bit now, preseason magazine on the page as well. He's going to be really good for them moving forward. Jack Williams had good moments. Hopgood had decent moments, but missed a lot of tackles. I'm scrunging the bottom of the barrel here. Now, do I think this is going to accurately reflect the Eels throughout the season? No, not at all. They're without Mitch Moses in this one, and Ronald Volkman, who I love and who played really, really good in the trials, had a bit of a shocker. There's a lot of players that got thrown in the deep end here. With Jake Tungo playing, and he scored a great try through his effort areas, but normally you'd expect Josh Adokar will be on that spot or Sean Russell will be out. Either way, there's a few players missing, but it's those players coming back. Even Mitch Moses in this side is not worth the 56 points that were put on them. So, yeah, it's a very, very, very bad game and a very disappointing start to this 2025 season for the Eels. But that's at least you get it out of the way early. You can't really say you're going to have many worse games throughout the season. Put a line through it. It's done. It's over. You were embarrassed. You should feel embarrassed. You should let that seep into you. But now it's done. You move on to next week, and I think they will have a better season. I don't think they're going to make the top 8 this year. Whether it's bottom 4, whether it's on the cusp of the 8, I'm not quite sure yet. I don't know if this game is going to be an accurate reflection of how the Eels play for the rest of the season. So I'm willing to write it off, but you can't deny it was a really, really poor performance. And while we're on the Eels, Dylan Brown recently, as in yesterday/today or whatever it was, 10-year deal. Yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. Regardless, 10-year deal for the Knights. He is signed with the Knights as of next year. That's a distraction that the Eels don't really want, especially with everything else going on. Do I like the deal from the Knights' perspective? No, not really. But that's a topic for another day. Do I like it from Dill's perspective? Absolutely. $1.3 million a year for 10 years. You've just made your life's savings. You're done. I'm happy for Dylan Brown. If I was Dylan Brown, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. Is it good for the Eels? No. Is it good for the Knights? I'm not sure. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that while we're on the Eels. We are going to wrap up the podcast there. Normally when we get, as I said, Riley, who will be our co-host moving forward back, we'll cut these down a bit more in speed, get them down to the hour mark. Hopefully we can tack on a little bit to the end and we'll talk about tips and bets. But at the moment, I don't want to tell you my tips and bets on a solo podcast. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you've made it this far on the first episode of the Chip and Chase podcast for 2025, so many more to come, so many more big things across the Instagram and the podcast. So if you're just listening to this podcast and you aren't following the Instagram, go and do so on there. We do a lot of content, general footy, super coach, which is something that we're quite expertised in. Lots of stuff there. So if you just want more footy and you enjoy this sort of content that we put out, head over there and vice versa. But thank you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll see you guys next time.